Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. Today I want to talk about my 5 potential league starters that I'm thinking about for the upcoming 324 Necropolis League. And all of the builds that I'm showing here, nothing has been theory crafted, nothing has been tested, because some of the things here on the list you cannot really test. So this is more of a thinking about builds and listing the pro and cons of the build. So if you want to get yourself into one of these builds, and feel free to do so. I'm just gonna give my 2 cents about it, and then at some point in the upcoming 2 or 3 days, I probably have to settle down on one that I will POB out and that I will share as my official league starter. So today about 5 builds that I currently think of that it will be one of these 5, okay? So first of all, the entire list, we have Bow Gladiator, we have the Archmage, Hexblast, Ignite, Scion, we have Assassin's Train, Contagion, Occultist, the Rage, Archmage, Spark, Scion, and last but not least, the Burning Arrow, Ignite, Elementalist. So these are the 5 that I'm currently thinking are the ones, or at least one of those, that I will pick. So let's start with the first one, and these are not in the order of priority. I will give my tier list at the end of the video, okay? So, first of all, Bow Gladiator. This is something I actually have tested in a solo self-fund environment, doing a 2-stone run in solo self-fund, completely kind of fresh account, because I never played solo self-fund Affliction League before. So it was okay. And okay means actually pretty good, considering that my gear was absolutely trash and I was still able to push up to tier 16 content. And I know exactly with 20-30 chaos investment, this will be 10 times better than what I experienced with it. But I think Bow Gladiator overall has not really a lot of pro and cons. It is a solid build. It is a build archetype that has been there before. People have been enjoying and playing Bow since quite a while. It once was even meta. It fell off meta, but with the addition to Snipe as a skill gem, makes it a lot easier to play around with your settings on the Gladiator. And now with the new Relicash boots, giving you the option to go for the Maven belt, but this is more like an endgame setup. And really getting out nasty big bleeds, being able to do uber bosses and stuff like that. I think it is the safest pick, I would say, on this list. I've tested it, I've played it in endgame before. I really enjoy the Bow playstyle. And there is not really a lot of downside. It works completely with rare items, as I showed in my solo self-fund run. Has a lot of options to go into endgame, talking about the Rislada's Coil Belt, or for example, a Relicash boots with a Maven belt, or you can even do some Frenzy Charge stacking, maybe even stealing the Masterful Form node from the Slayer and playing something with that. So there are options to make the build quite tanky and also quite, good DPS, basically for Ubers and stuff. Then next on the list, we have the Archmage, Hexblast, Ignite, Scion. And here is something I want to point out straight away. I know Hierophant is a thing. I know the Templar classes are a thing, right? But I just don't like the Templar model and the Templar class overall. It's just a personal thing, so that's why I personally just don't play one of these. That doesn't mean that they are better or worse. I mean, they're probably better, but, it's just me. Me being me. So, why Scion for Hexblast, Ignite? Why not Elementalist? Might be the next question. Well, Hexblast do have the built-in Elementalist, okay? That means that the Hexblast skill gem does have the tag that all damage with this skill can freeze, shock, and ignite. That also means that you have to take care of your chance to ignite, not like Elementalist where all damage can ignite, right? Or will ignite, better said. All damage, yes, but not every hit will ignite. So you need the ignite chance, but therefore, Hexblast does have a very nice damage effectiveness of 340%. And matching and pairing that up with Archmage means you're gonna have a lot of access to flat damage, getting nasty ignites out of that. Scion also pretty good because it has the Hierophant sub-ascendancy for I think 25% increased mana, some extra Mind of a Matter effect, I think 8%. There is also Arcane Surge that you get while casting spells and stuff like that, but you also have access to something like Raider and for Pathfinder for easy Flask Sustain or early spell suppression and frenzy generation. And I think with Ignite, Ignite proliferation, double proliferation, one from the Barracks Respite or the Aberrative boots, plus the proliferation modifier is just such a beautiful clear, and I showcase that quite often because I'm an Ignite enjoyer. You know, EK Ignite and all the other Ignite builds that I played, they always have superior clear, and this is something I really, really enjoy. But I also think that Hexblast with the Archmage as Scion played does have enough damage, thanks to Archmage with the new Archmage, to tackle on Uber bosses. Have not tested this, cannot really test that. I cannot like change the way Archmage works in the current patch, so as long as the patch is not live, the Archmage cannot be tested. But Hexblast Ignite, something I played before, something I really enjoy. And to top it even off, I don't know if I live behind the moon or under a rock, but I completely forgot that they disabled the Doom mechanic. So basically before you had like, it was played like an Essence Drain Contagion. You curse the enemy, you wait for your Doom to stack up, and then you have this massive Hexblast getting a lot of damage based on the Doom on the enemy, right? Doom is completely gone. The Doomsday Keystone and whatnot, they're all gone. So now you just have like, if the target is hexed, or cursed basically, then you deal extra damage, and that's basically it. So you can run this with like a Blasphemy Aura for mapping, so you don't, it's a one button build in that case. You have a Blasphemy Aura or even Profane Proxy the ring, and let your Skitter bots curse enemies, so you just run around and just Hexblast enemies, Ignite Prolif, everything dies, must be super good. And if you go bossing, you just don't use Reservation for your Skitter bots or any other aura, and just hand cast the curse for this extra damage, because your Archmage will be based on your maximum, I think, unreserved mana, so you don't really want to reserve something. But for mapping, you know, if you reserve 30%, if you have like 12,000 mana, you know, you have so much damage that it doesn't really matter in the end if you have like extra damage or not in terms of mapping, right? So I think this might be really, really strong and also would work without any uniques. Then next on the list we have Essence Drain Contagion, which is something that a lot of people don't even have on their radar anymore, and I usually don't have this either, but hear me out. Essence Drain Contagion is still a chaos dot, means chaos is always nice to have, especially when you push early into the Atlas. We all know that getting Essence Drain Contagion into a state where it can deal with Uber bosses is very hard. It is very expensive to get some form of good DPS out of it, right? And you always have to like layer your chaos spells. So it's not like you shoot one Essence Drain and you have like chaos dot cap or something like that. It's not gonna happen. So you need to layer Blight, I don't know, Soul Rend together with Essence Drain, and Blight on top of that, right, for channeling. So you kind of have to layer all of that to get like really good damage out of it, right? Which is clunky and sucks, but for the mapping aspect, you know, Essence Drain Contagion is just so nice to play. It is also very tanky, but it lacks in the form of single target. But as I said, if you layer those, it is still fine. Especially early on with mapping, when you start corrupting your high tier maps because you need them for the map completion, stuff like that. There is, like, as far as I know, not a single modifier on maps what an Essence Drain Contagion character cannot run. So the extra quality of life of running every single map modifier is pretty nice. There is no alley reflect or face reflect, or the no region doesn't matter. Like, there is so many things that you just not really counter, but you can still run all of these things, especially early on. It's not a problem when you have like 1 million or let's say 2 million dot DPS on Essence Drain. Don't forget, it's still chaos and monsters generally have lower chaos res. It will be super easy to clear your entire Atlas, and you should have enough damage to kill all the pinnacle bosses, not talking about Uber bosses. Next up we have Rage Archmage Spark Scion. This is probably the worst one in this list. Talking about the entrance level, it is like a crit multi-build. You can play it that way, but it requires the Rage Helmet that drops from an Uber boss, so there is no early access to that. This helm is not build enabling, so you don't need it early on, but you want to have that because it's built around the Rage Helmet with all the cast speed, the movement speed, and the spell damage that you get, right? So it is an on-hit build similar to the Arc Mana Stacker that I played in the, Crucible League. And that was by far, I think, the chillest mapper that I ever played. It was super tanky. I even face tanked the Cyrus, the Uber Cyrus Meteor, the Quadra Beams and stuff like that, the Shaper Slam. Everything can be face tanked as long as you have your Arcane Cloak up, that is, right? But it is very tanky. The damage source was not the best, but it was fair enough. I think like 20 mil DPS or something. So it was fine to do all the content in the game, but I used Stormbrand for better damage uptime, because back in the day with the old Archmage, it was just simply not possible using something like Arc and just permanently spam it without running out of mana. It's not an Indigon build, but why Spark? So Spark got a bit of a buff in terms of damage effectiveness when it comes to the Spark of Unpredictability. And since we're going Scion with it, similar to the Hexblast character where we branch out to Hierophant and also can go down to like Pathfinder and Raider, you can also use the Raider or the Ranger starting area for Scion. That means you get access to all the nodes when it comes to projectile speed. We all know you want to have quite a bit of projectile speed for Spark to feel good, and with these the new Spark gem with the added effectiveness, it is also going to be very cool with Archmage support. And there is one thing, there are obviously the question about what about Mjolnir builds, you know? And I would completely stay away from all of those, because I know for a fact that like 5 streamers at least are going to start something like a mana stacker with like Ball Lightning and Mjolnir and stuff. And Mjolnir is a very, very, very rare item. I found like 2 or 3 in the past couple of years. It is a very rare item. And when I know there's a couple of streamers playing that, I can see Mjolnir going for like 10, 15 divines earlier in the league. It's probably going to drop at some point, but it's not going to be an accessible item. So will be Indigon and all those kind of things, especially like Ivory Tower. So everything that is like mana, energy shield stacking, I would not league start just because I know that these items are going to be very expensive. And that's why I also rank the Rage Archmage Spark Side as my worst of this list, just because it is completely experimental, and I do see that I will have to invest quite a bit to reach a level where it feels good. But I can definitely see that this is possible to play, just because I had such an amazing time in Crucible League with my Arc Scion build, and the Rage version might be even crazier when it comes to that. And last on the list is Burning Arrow Ignite Elementalist, and I'm specifically talking about Burning Arrow of Vigor. That is the life stacking version. So life stacking, I think, got quite a big of hit because there were 2 versions of the life stacking characters, right? The one was like with the Wildwood Ascendancy, I think the Warlock or something, where you could stack energy shield gear to get a shit ton of life. I see builds with like over 50,000 life, right? This is no longer a thing, but we keep the amulet that also enables life stacking in that regard, because for every not used red gem that you have on your gear, you get like 48 flat life or something. So if you combine this with a bunch of like increased life and in later stages maybe with Adorned Jewel and Widow Hail, I think this might be a super fun character to play. I would also use this with Snipe, because Snipe is just such a generic, I mean, yeah, clunky in one hand, but also like shit tons of damage, same way as the Bow Gladiator. Since you can get a lot of damage early on with shit gear just because you have Snipe and massive damage multipliers. I think it will be the same as with the Burning Arrow Ignite Elementalist with Snipe as a form of single target, but I wouldn't necessarily use anything different. So if you have enough attack speed, you can get your attack rate to a point where you just like one time click your Burning Arrow, your Snipe, and you will instantly get 1 stage of Snipe, and that already will kind of deal more damage than the base version of Burning Arrow. So there is no point of using 2 Burning Arrow setups, one with Snipe and one without. So I would just play strictly a Snipe Burning Arrow Elementalist. I don't know how strong this is going to be in the early stages, because I'm not going to league start with the Transfigured gem. I don't know how expensive it's going to be. Probably not as expensive, because like who else plays that? And I don't know how expensive the amulet will be. So it would be a base Burning Arrow Ignite Elementalist, and then farming currency to get the amulet to go into life stacking and use the Burning Arrow of Vigor and see how that one goes with the Snipe playstyle with quite some attack speed. And those are basically the 5 league starters that I'm currently thinking about. If I put them in a tier list, I would say Bleed Bow over the Hexblast. I think the Hexblast version might be the second strongest or the second best to play in this list. Then I would give it actually to Essence Drain, followed by Burning Arrow, and last would be the Archmage Spark Sign, because I think this is the most experimental, where I have no idea if this is even gonna work out the way I would like it to be. How does it feel like? And if you don't really know how something is gonna feel like and you leak started, this might be or it could technically be an early reroll, which kind of sucks, but they're still on my radar because this would be at least the most interesting one at least. So it's always like, oh man, I really want to play that and try it out, but what if it sucks, you know? It's like, eh. But I know for a fact that Bleedbow might be like a very, very solid League starter, as well as the Hexblast Ignite character. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, and by the way, what are you League starting? See you in the next